to Fresh Leaf Forever, a podcast that gives you fascinating insights week after week. Here's your host, Vi Kumar.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode on Podcast Fresh Leaf Forever. Today we have Dr.Jayne Morgan. Hello, Dr. Morgan.
Hi, how are you today?
Good. Welcome back on the show one more time.
Yeah.
But this time we are going to be talking about Pilates. And as much as Dr. Morgan is an expert cardiologist and she is spearheading the COVID task force at Piedmont Hospital here in Atlanta, and she's also an expert who is featured on so many different panels with regards to COVID-19 and combating COVID-19. She is equally an expert, a sought-after expert in the area of Pilates. So, Dr. Morgan, what exactly is Pilates and what areas of the body does it focus on?
Yeah, hi, I'm so happy to join your listeners today. So I have been, how do I even start? I was introduced to Pilates. Maybe I'll start there. True story. I was in my neighborhood. This was maybe 20 years ago, maybe 18 or 20 years ago. And I was standing at the bus stop with one of my neighbors. My kids were really little. And it was summertime because we're in Georgia and schools start very early. And my neighbor, who was older than I am by like 6 or 7 years, was wearing these cute shorts. And I was wearing long pants because I just felt like my legs didn't look good anymore. And I had already said to myself, well, I guess this is what it's like to get older. You get to a point where you just can't wear shorts in the summer anymore. And then here I am at the bus stop, and I was just accepting it as this is getting older. My legs don't look good enough to be in shorts. And I get to the bus stop, and my neighbor's wearing these shorts, and her name is Gina. And I said, Gina, oh my God, your legs look great. And as I said, she was older than I am, and I've already given up and said, that's it. Shorts are over for me. And she said, oh, I said, what do you do? How do you keep yourself, so toned? And she said, oh, I do Pilates. And I had heard of Pilates, but I'd never done it. And so I asked her about it. And so she invited me to her classes. And that's how it really got started, because I couldn't wear shorts anymore. And I wanted to still wear shorts. And she seemed to have the solution.
Hey, Dr. M, we all need inspiration in some form. Right. And there you go, I guess, wearing shorts or in the summertime. So as a method of exercise, how would you categorize it? Is it like low impact flexibility? What kind of exercise is it?
Right. And I know exactly, where you're headed with that. And so what I was going to say to answer even the earlier question, Pilates incorporates, all of your body in the movement, and it really focuses on the core and that everything emanates from the core. So if it's sort of like the foundation of a house, or the foundation really of anything, if your foundation isn't strong, the rest that's built around it is unstable. And so Pilates focuses on your core. And then from there, when we say your core, we mean, your abs and your rib cage. So that entire torso that needs to be tight and contracted. And from there, you receive your power to move the rest of your body, your legs, your arms, your back. So we focus a lot on core. And we use our own body as weights. We don't really use weights. We use different movements to provide the resistance that we need. It's also very healthy for you. I injured my hip recently, my leg actually. Oh, no. And then of course, as a doctor, I didn't get anything done about it, right? Because I'm a doctor. We don't ever see doctors. And so then it got worse, and it was bothering my hip. So I ended up in physical therapy. Never been in physical therapy before, but went to physical therapy, and all the movements that they were doing were really just Pilates. And I said to them, I was like, oh my gosh, I come here for a Pilates class. And so actually, I just began to rehab myself. And I thought to myself, this is the second time that I've rehabbed myself, because I had an injury a few years ago. And again, through Pilates, I was able to really get back and be strong. And so when you think about Pilates, think about how your body is developing, lengthening of the muscles, strengthening of the muscles, and flexibility. These are long, lean muscles. If you look at me, I'm not short and contracted and bulky and muscular. All of the muscles are stretched and long so we can be our best height, our tallest height, our longest limbs, our longest legs, long, lean, toned muscles, not bulky, shapely, not bulky. And so those are the results. And the other thing I think that you think about is just kind of the mental of it. It's probably a little bit more dynamic than yoga. So you are moving a bit more than yoga, but it does require, mental focus and mental concentration. And last thing I'll say before I shut up is I'll say, you asked about, what is the impact? There are different levels of impact of Pilates. You can have low impact, middle impact, and high impact. And it just depends on how you're moving, how many repetitions you're doing, that type of thing. And so, there are things like power Pilates, there's reformation, there's balanced body, there are all kinds of things. So you can find a prescription for you, low impact, medium impact, high impact, whatever works for you with regard to, where you are in your journey.
Okay. So as far as, say, you said low impact, medium impact, or high impact, then does it mean one can challenge themselves to the extent that they want? Say, like folks like me who probably want to do it as like a routine exercise regimen can pick a certain pattern, whereas, say, my daughter, who's an athlete, she's a full-time tennis player, and so she needs probably a little more of a challenge. So she can then do something different. Is that right?
So actually, both of you can be in the same class together. And what happens is it's either the number of repetitions. You might do 5, she might do 15. Or it would be how quickly we're moving from one movement to the next. It also could be every movement has different levels of the movements. You can start at a basic level and go to an intermediate level, and so we can do different levels. And I often teach when I'm teaching, because I teach to everybody, I'll start out with one level, and then I'll say, we're going to the second level. Here's how the second level will be done. If you're not ready for the second level, do another set at the level 1, and then we'll do level 2. And then I'll say, okay, for those who are ready, here's what the third level looks like. And we'll move. If you're not ready for the third level, do another set on the second level or do another on the first. So everybody can, you can customize, what you're doing. The reason that I do it that way is because all of my classes are virtual. And because I'm not there in the classroom with you to actually see what you're doing, it's really important for me to give visual and verbal cues that are very specific and very accurate such that people can follow them. And I have to teach to all levels because I'm never sure what's out there. And I want to make sure everybody is getting a good workout. So no, you and your daughter can absolutely come to the exact same class and get a workout. Yes.
Okay, perfect. And what about you compared it to yoga? And you said this is a little bit more dynamic than yoga. So is this like an aerobic form of exercise? What would you categorize it as? And I guess, say if it also involves movement, can someone do it on like a mat, or would the advanced levels mean going to machinery of some sort?
Oh, yes, that's such a good question. So, every piece of equipment, including the mat, we consider the mat a piece of equipment, has its own level. So if I say advanced, I just mean advanced for what you're doing. So for instance, virtually, I teach mat. And so I mean advanced for the mat. But if you're going to a studio, or maybe you have a piece of equipment at home and you're on the reformer, it could mean more advanced movements for you on that piece of equipment, the tower, chair, the reformer, the Cadillac, whatever you're using, the ARC. And so everything has its own specific nuance. I like the mat because I think people try to go straight to the equipment because it's sexy and it looks fun. And they think they're going to get great results, and they will. But oftentimes what I see is that people perform on the equipment with bad form because they haven't learned the basics, controlling their body and form on the mat. The mat gives you the foundation from which everything else in Pilates emanates. That's where Joseph Pilates started it, on the mat, and then developed this other equipment. So how do you hold your core? How do you breathe? How do you count? How do you stay in forward flexion? How do you move into modifications if you're starting to get tired and still keep your body safe? All those types of things are taught, foundational aspects of the mat Pilates. So I think mat is key. I suggest anyone who's starting Pilates, people like to go right to the equipment, I know, and you go to these big Pilates studios and these big, athletic facilities, and they have all these reformers lined up. And of course, they spent tons of money on them. So they want you to use them so they can charge. And I think that they are great, but I also think that you should not skip some mat so that you really learn with no equipment around you how to control your body and what your body feels like as you're controlling it and moving it and learning the movements. Many of the movements are small movements, big changes. They're very small, which means you have to have correct form in order to get the results out of them. And so it's very, very, very important.
Okay. And right there, you're learning to use your own body weight, whereas, like the other machines or other equipment, probably say like, even the other forms of strength training, you're kind of lifting heavy weights, whereas here you are trying to use your own body weight. Is that like a fair assessment?
Right. You're using your own body weight as resistance. And as you move into the equipment will have bands and springs and things that will create additional resistance for you. So the mat, you are using your own body. It's as a resistance training. You asked me, what is it like? Is it like yoga? It's a little bit more dynamic than yoga. When I say more dynamic than yoga pauses and holds positions for periods of time. Whereas Pilates doesn't necessarily hold the positions, but we repeat the positions again and again and again. So there's this repetition as opposed to yoga will hold many poses, and Pilates will have you moving through the poses again and again. And in that way, it is a bridge, I often think, towards ballet as well. So sort of a bridge between yoga and ballet, where you are using the right positioning and the body positioning, but you're also in movement at the same time.
So sounds like it's it's achieving flexibility, and it's kind of more gentler than any of the other rigorous like aerobic type of activity, right? So what health benefits do you think one can hope to achieve doing Pilates? Say, even in your own case, you said you injured your hip, but what in general can people hope to achieve with Pilates?
Right. And I injured my hip, not in Pilates. I injured my leg hiking. And then I didn't seek medical help. I shouldn't tell you guys that, but I didn't. And so then of course it got worse. And then my hip on the opposite side was affected because I was counterbalancing. And so it's like anything, if a stitch in time saves 9. If you don't take care of it, it's going to, turn
you're compensating.
You're compensating. So, but Pilates, was really the key to rehabilitating myself. And so it is gentler, but it is strenuous. And so you probably shouldn't come to Pilates and think, oh my gosh, I'm just kind of going to lie on the floor and sip a little water. But because we do try to get you to work and understand the mechanics of your body and the beauty of your body. And that requires effort. It requires strength. And you want to have strength training, and you want to end up being stronger, longer, and more flexible. And we focus on all 3 of those things. Pilates. And so oftentimes it's not so much that it's easy. I don't think people come to Pilates and walk away saying, wow, that was easy. I think most people walk away saying, wow, that was more challenging than I thought, which lets me know that they actually focused on it and tried to do it. And people walk away and say, oh, that was pretty easy. Unless they're really, excellent athletes, that lets me know that they really weren't paying attention. They were kind of around doing whatever they wanted. Because even though our movements may look small, it requires effort to focus on the breathing, to focus on your core, to focus on your forward flexion. Your muscles are fatiguing to be able to work through that. But I think it's a beautiful movement. It's a beautiful discipline for your body. I think it's a beautiful discipline for your mind. It's a way to release, and not so much like maybe yoga, but a mental in a different way where you must focus on getting your form right. And it requires your mental focus to hold your body into position and to and make certain that you're safe.
Okay.
And to efforts.
Okay.
And it's kind of like anything after exercise, even Pilates, once you're done with it, you feel better. Those endorphins are flowing. Oftentimes I suggest to people, hey, go for a walk or soak in the bathtub. You feel, your body feels better after having done it. And that's mental as well.
Okay. And so as I hear, it's core strength, stability, improves your posture, balance, obviously, giving flexibility. Back in a moment with our guest on Fresh Leaf Forever. Who can do it and who should not be doing it? Say for people with back pain, older folks, pregnant women, are there any do's and don'ts as to who can do it and who can't?
Yeah. So first of all, everybody can do it. And then there are modifications for people, for instance, with neck injuries, neck pain. So there's certain movements that we probably would not do if you have injury to your neck or to your back. Pregnant women as well. We don't want you on your back for long periods of time as we're doing some of our movements. So we'll make sure you're up and moving around. But in general, there really isn't anyone who can't do it, regardless of your body type or whatever limitations you have. This is your personal journey. So you're not comparing yourself to anyone else. You are working to the top of your ability. And what is your range of motion? And are you getting better compared to yourself last month, not compared to Abby or someone else, compared to yourself? This is your personal journey.
Okay.
We also want to focus on the cardiovascular benefits, all the benefits to your health of focusing on your body, slowing yourself down while at the same time speeding yourself up, if that makes any sense. So you are slowing yourself down to take a moment to focus on yourself, but at the same time, increasing your metabolism, increasing your adrenaline, increasing your endorphins, and burning calories as well. So we always want to think about that whole cardiovascular, as a cardiologist, that cardiovascular benefit that you get. So it's not only the physical beauty, and it's also not the comfort of continuing to get older and having range of motion and flexibility and stretching and strength as you move through life, but it's also those cardiovascular benefits as well.
Would it help someone, say, with osteopenia or osteoporosis to kind of, feel better and get themselves stronger as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Those types of patients really benefit from Pilates because they need that type of resistance to keep their bone mass and bone strength. Better than using weights. And I always think is better than machines. The reason I say that, and I love the reformer, the reformers give you a different type of workout, and I think that they're excellent. The reason I always say mat is better because you don't need any equipment. You can be at home. You're not trying to get to the gym and it's raining or it's cold or you're trying to pick up your kids. You can do it anywhere you like. You don't need other people. You don't need a membership. It's kind of like walking in the park. You can just do it. And so I really, really love the mat, especially now that we're in this COVID, because you don't have to go anywhere to do it.
So it's like ideal for beginners, ideal for anyone, say even for people with like established fitness routines. Is that right?
Oh my gosh, this integrates so well into people, certainly if they have high level, big athletes, big fitness routines. In fact, we're seeing it more and more in professional athletes, especially men in football and basketball and soccer. They're incorporating Pilates now into their routines because they are understanding the benefit of having that length, having that, they have a lot of strength, but not necessarily core strength. They have a lot of what I call brute strength, right? They're muscular. And having that flexibility and making certain, because that flexibility ultimately is what prevents a lot of injuries. Are you able to, sustain the impact? Meaning, can your body bend and come back? Can it twist and come back? Pilates helps with a lot of that, increasing your flexibility, certainly of your spine as well.
So it can be used safely in conjunction with any other exercise routine.
Absolutely. Integrates not only safely, I think it's a great adjunct to all sports, tennis, everything, swimming. Pilates is a great adjunct. I can't think of anything where Pilates would not support anything that you're trying to achieve.
Okay. We talked about integration. What about, can this solely be someone's exercise program?
It can be. It's solely my exercise program. Well, I guess in some ways it's not true because I'm a big hiker. I walk and I hike. But Pilates is the core of what I do. And I do it at least 3 times a week because I teach 3 times a week. I forgot to mention that I teach online Pilates with Dr.Jayne, and it's Dr.Jayne, Jayne. And you can, I guess you can ping Vi if you want to, but I'm also on, you can go to my page on Instagram. You can send me a message or sign up, whatever you want. And I have classes 3 times a week, Tuesday evenings at 6:00. This is Eastern Standard Time, Friday mornings at 9:15 and Saturdays at 2. And I teach a children's class on Saturdays at 1:15 as well. For 30 minutes, we do children's Pilates. It's my kids zone. And it's never too early to get your kids moving and thinking about all different types of exercises. Certainly now, if your kids tend to be more in the house than they used to because of COVID, let them come to my Pilates class, have 30 minutes of Pilates, bring your friends. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, what about children? How early can they begin? And so it seems like, is there like a certain age that you would like for them to begin?
So I would say children can begin as early as they can take instruction. And that's different for, sometimes a 2-year-old can take instruction. Sometimes you have a 7-year-old who still can't take any instruction. So it just depends, but I don't exclude anyone. But I would say I've had kids in my class, which is funny. I do, it's all virtual. I had a kid in my class and the class started and she rolled herself up in the mat and just stayed there like a cocoon for the whole 30 minutes. When the class was over, she unrolled herself and left. And that was it. That's what she did for the class. And the next time that she came, I asked her, I said, so are you rolling yourself up in the mat? She's like, oh, I never rolled myself up in the mat. And I said, well, the last class you rolled yourself up in the mat. This time I would like the mat to be out. The mat to be flat. She said, no, I wasn't rolled up in the mat. I was a sleeping turtle. And so, so that was what she was doing. She's like, I wasn't rolled up in the mat. I was the sleeping turtle. So, you've got to be able to meet children where they are and think about what they're doing. So sometimes, we have kids that are, following along. I can look up and I can see kids jumping off the sofas and doing something. So It's everywhere. But I think it's still a great 30 minutes for kids to kind of release the energy. Even the ones who I look up, they're not on the mat. They're sort of doing a handspring off the sofa. They're releasing that energy. We're all so cloistered inside. So it's 30 minutes where I teach Pilates for kids. We have a good time. We enjoy it. But if you have a kid that you know is probably either going to roll themselves up like a turtle or jump off the sofa, they're still welcome to come as well. Because without them realizing it, they're still learning something. They've incorporated something. Something is getting in there. So bring them in and let them release some of that energy. However they need to release it, every kid is different.
What about diet, nutrition, and lifestyle changes? Is anything required, or how best can someone achieve results by putting it all together?
Yeah. So, there are no dietary restrictions. You manage your diet as you like. I certainly give a lot of tips if people are interested, but I don't force it on anyone. I also think that Pilates is best when integrated with some type of aerobic activity. Pilates is not necessarily aerobic. And so if you are a biker, or in my case, I'm a hiker, but it's best when integrated with something else, playing tennis or something that's a little bit more aerobic.
Brisk walking, right?
Just walking. I just walk. I'm a walker and a hiker. I just walk. So something that's a little bit more aerobic, I think that is the best combination of doing Pilates and then doing something where you're actually utilizing what you've learned in Pilates to get your body moving. And you can do it in hopefully in a more fluid way.
Okay, wonderful. So it seems like it's a great program for anyone and everyone to get started with. And all your certifications in Pilates, those 17 or more. So it started with, wanting to wear shorts, but then it has taken you as far as those certifications. So what was that motivation in every step?
So, I did not teach. I didn't start Pilates to teach it. Obviously, I just wanted to wear some shorts. It was as simple as that. Like I live in Georgia. It was hot. I wasn't wearing shorts anymore because my legs didn't look good. And I thought it was over for me. And I found a way to keep wearing shorts. It was as simple as that. After that, I really started to get more interested in it and started getting certifications as a hobby. Obviously, I was a physician. This wasn't my job. This was just something that I did. And so I would go and do teaching certifications on different equipment. And then after a while, I finished all of the certifications. So then I went to a different school out on the West Coast and did another entire series of certifications. Again, not teaching. I'm just doing it for my own knowledge. I just like it. When you go to the teaching certifications, you learn so much more than you learned in the class as a student. So I was, so there I was all the time hanging out with Pilates teachers, but I wasn't a teacher. I was just doing it for the fun of it. I wanted to learn more about it. So I went to all the teaching certifications. Next thing I knew, and not next thing, it was over a long period of time. So I wasn't, aggressively doing this, but from time to time I would take teaching certifications, but probably over the course of 10 years, I ended up with 17 certifications. Most people who teach Pilates only have one or two. So that I will give you that for your Pilates instructors, they mostly have only one or two teaching certifications, and then they're teaching. Almost nobody has 17 certifications. Literally, I was just doing this for the enjoyment.
Sure.
I didn't teach. I didn't do anything. I just liked it, and I wanted to learn more about it. And I started to become increasingly more involved. And then, of course, you meet all the teachers, and they get to know you. They see how you move. They see how you teach because you work with them in these teaching certifications. And from time to time, someone would call me and ask if I would come and teach their class. And initially, I would turn it down. I would say, "Hey guys, I just do this for fun, but I'm a doctor. I'm not, really a teacher." They're like, "Yeah, but you're certified." So after a while, I would go from time to time just to teach their class. And that's really how I got into teaching, that the teachers that I used to hang out with started to call me to cover for them if they were sick or on vacation. And so I began to teach. And so it's all been very, very, very organic. Talk about backing into something. I just wanted to wear some shorts, and it seemed like this thing called Pilates would let me wear shorts.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are almost 20 years later, and I have my own Pilates school, Pilates with Dr. Jayne. I teach it all virtually online. I have a lot of focus on body, mental, and health, and I bring a lot of my cardiology medical background to it as well. So
perfect. And what about, it also seems like the grounding or the calming effect that it brings, and also the exercise pattern, it just seems to, I always, as a person with autoimmune condition, I always feel beneficial if I exercise.
right.
And so is there any specific relevance? Have you had people with autoimmune conditions benefiting from doing Pilates?
So if they've had autoimmune conditions, no one has disclosed it to me. So I would just say that.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say, though, is all people with autoimmune conditions can benefit greatly from Pilates. There would be no difference in what you're doing with your body than someone without an autoimmune condition.
Okay.
And the ultimate benefit is the strengthening and conditioning of your body, which increases your health and how you're managing really your health in your life. It is a part of living a healthy life and taking care of your body and your mind. And Pilates absolutely integrates into that.
Wonderful. And before we part ways in this conversation, I know your time is precious. I just would also like to focus on any do's and don'ts for people that think, oh, I can just do this on my own. Is this a right way to go about it?
Right. I would say not, because you can easily injure yourself in Pilates. And I think form is important.
Mm-hmm.
And, as I said, most teachers only have 1 or 2 certifications. And I think it's very, very important to make sure you are somewhere with someone who, first of all, just like medicine, and maybe this is the way doctors think, but the very first thing is going to keep you safe. That's the number one thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same way we approach medicine and patients as well. The number one thing is to keep you safe before we even move forward with any intervention. And so I would say, unless you have really, a big background in it, or maybe, or a big background in ballet or yoga,
Mm-hmm.
where you have some foundational principles of body movement and control, I absolutely would not say just start this on your own.
Okay. And are all your classes 30 minutes or are they longer?
They're all an hour long, with the exception of my children's classes are 30 minutes. That's about all they can focus on.
I'm
Right.
sure, that itself is a challenge.
Right.
And how many times in a week should one minimally do Pilates, or is there like any, again, do's and don'ts with regard to that?
Yeah, I would say at least twice a week if you can. If you only get it in once, I think that's great. Once is better than none. But once you get started, if you can do it twice a week and keep up with at least twice a week, I think it's great. 2 to 4 times a week is, where I try to always be. Generally, at a minimum, I'm at 3 because I teach 3 times a week. But I would say 2 is sort of a really good cadence to take it twice a week, have a couple of days spaced in between, and really get to know your body again and get to know your body in a different way.
Oh, wonderful conversation as always, Dr. Morgan. And I think I'm certainly going to be one of those newbies into your class, program, because I'm just, whatever we talked about here definitely has got me so interested in it, and I definitely would love to try it. And we'll catch up again with you in the future. And thanks so much for sharing your insights.
Yes, and bring your daughter.
Absolutely.
And don't forget, people can reach me on Instagram at Dr.Jayne Morgan. It's Pilates with Dr. Jayne. Pilates with Dr. Jayne. And you'll see it there, and you can have all of my information. Right
okay,
there.
I'll make sure to include those in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
And thank you so much once again. And listeners, it was a pleasure having Dr. Morgan again on the show. And I look forward to catching up with you all again in the future. Until then, it's bye saying so long.